Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video, we're going to use Bootstrap to create a navbar that is much better than the one we did with vanilla CSS in the last video. And to start this all off, we're going to nuke everything we did in the last video from Orbit. So let's go up a level. We can see we have two folders. We have Yelp Comics and Yelp Comics Vanilla. We want the comics one. We do not want the vanilla one. So we're going to rm-r. Now this is very important that you don't accidentally hit enter right here, because once you do that command, it's gone. There's no getting it back. rm-r, Yelp Comics Vanilla is what we want, not the original Yelp Comics. Now it's gone. Boom. All this stuff, gone. Don't save the changes. Don't save any of these changes because we don't care. So now we have our regular Yelp Comics again. So let's cd into there. And we are back to where we started. So very quickly, I'm going to give you an intro to Bootstrap. You can get Bootstrap at getbootstrap.com. Bootstrap says that you can build fast, responsive sites with Bootstrap. It really does make your life so much easier. Best place to start is click Get Started. And really all you need to do to import Bootstrap into your project is to get these links, because these are CDNs, and all you got to do is copy and put them. So paste this into your head before all other style sheets. It's important that you put this before all of your other style sheets, because if you're going to do any customization, you need them to be loaded after this, or otherwise this will overwrite them. So just copy. And inside of our head, let's go to our partials, header. So we need this before all of our other stuff. We're going to paste that in. And the next step is to use JavaScript. Many of our components require JavaScript, and they talk about the ones they need. So place these near the end of your pages. I always put these immediately before the body, the closing body tag. So I copied it, and I'm going to come to the footer, which has the closing body tag, and immediately before that, I'm going to paste those three scripts tags. So let's save, run our application. Change. So let's update. There we go. So now you'll notice that there's some pretty significant changes. The margin and everything has been gotten rid of, so now our H1 goes all the way to the side of the screen, but all of this is now kind of contained in this centerpiece with having a lot of margin on the left and right of the screen. As I make this page smaller and smaller, you'll see that it stays in the middle, and you see that it's got those breakpoints in there, that as you go from one breakpoint to the next, it will automatically make them bigger and smaller, whatever as needed. So already we can see Bootstrap is making our life easier. So the next step is going to be recreate our navbar partials. So we're going to touch views/partials/navbar.ejs. And let's open it up. And just like last time, we're just going to make an H1 that says navbar here. And again, just like last time, we're going to dump this into our body. We want this at the top of our body, so include, and remember we have to go up a level because we're putting a partial inside of a partial, partials/navbar. Save, come over here and refresh. I stopped my server. Refresh, make sure it works. Yep, navbar here. Perfect. So how do we make a Bootstrap navbar? What is Bootstrap and what makes it special? Well, let's look at the docs. And Bootstrap has some of the best documentation you will ever find. It is absolutely fantastic. They talk about all the different things, and there's a ton of stuff in Bootstrap we're really not going to have the time to get into. They have awesome layout. We're not going to get to the layout in this video, but we're going to use it in a further one. But basically, it creates a grid for you so that you can quickly and easily lay out things at certain points of the screen very, very easily. What we're interested in is components, and scroll down to navbar. Oops, navbar there. And it tells you how it works and all this stuff, and it has a ton of examples. All these different, look at all these examples. I love examples. Examples about all the cool different customizations you can do. But what we're going to do is we're just going to grab the first example, and this is what it will look like on our screen. Shows you what it's going to look like. And we're just going to copy and paste the entire thing into our application, into our navbar. Boom. So now we've got all this mess that we really don't know what it means. So let's just look at the very basic structure. Let's go ahead and save it first and refresh our page so we can see what it looks like. There we go. Done. Navbar completed. Check. Just kidding. You can see here, though, the drop-down works like that. You can search the little search bar. It actually doesn't do anything, but it's there. This link is disabled. You can't click on it. So just kind of demonstrating how to do this stuff. So what we want, this is called the brand. These are links. There's a drop-down. There's a disabled link. And then you've got this stuff floated to the right. What we want is for it to have, we're going to actually put an image right here, like our brand image, if you will. Then we're going to have a link to our comics, because our homepage and our comics page are pretty much the same thing. Then we're going to have a link to add a comic. I'm going to add a drop-down right here, but instead of just these three things, we're going to have like genres. This is going to say genres, and you can pick different genres of comic books, like superhero or slice of life or horror or whatever, what have you. And then I like this search field. I'm going to leave the search box like this where it is. And then instead of a disabled link, we're going to have a login, a link to login. I might float that to the right. I haven't decided yet. So how do we do all this? Well, basically the way Bootstrap works is you have some very basic elements, just like regular HTML, and then you add classes. Bootstrap has its own special classes that you add to all these different things, and they have different functionality that all work together. So you'll see here that the kind of the parent is a nav, and it has a bunch of classes: Navbar, Navbar expand large, Navbar light, background light. This A tag is the Navbar right here. It says it's the brand right here, and you can see that it says Navbar brand. They've got a button next, but you don't even see that button. You don't see that button until you make this smaller. Once you make it smaller, now you see that button, and you get this cool little hamburger drop down. This would have taken us hours and hours to code all this stuff up, and it still wouldn't look as good as theirs. This is why Bootstrap is awesome and amazing, among many other reasons, because this is just the Navbar. They've got this kind of cool stuff for so many different components. They've got forms, they've got jumbotrons, they've got pagination, they've got tooltips, they've got progress bars, they've got alerts, they've got badges and cards and all kinds of stuff. Bootstrap is wonderful. I love it so much. It lets me be lazy. So let's just fix all this stuff. So step one is going to be to get our image and then put it right here instead of the word Navbar. Now I've already found an image. Let's copy it. Let me get the URLs and show it to you. URL is right there. freesvg.org/bang vintage comic book sign vector drawing if you want to type it out, or you can find your own image. I don't care. That's what it looks like. It's this right here. So we're going to download this. This is an SVG, and that will come into play. An SVG is different than just a regular image. So we're going to save this file. Just save it to the desktop. And then we're going to upload this file to Gorm IDE. And we want this inside of our public folder. So we got public CSS, but now we want to add a new folder inside of there called IMG for images. So now we have public CSS and public images. And inside of images, we want to upload a file. So we're going to import file. I'm going to browse and get the bang thing I just made. Hit OK. And it will import it. Import it successfully, and now it's right here. If I click on it, it'll show me the XML version of that SVG, not the actual image itself, but we don't really care. We're just going to use that image. So right now, it says Navbar. We don't want Navbar. Instead, and I'm going to put a space here to make it a little bit more clear, we want an image. So image tag source equals, remember we're in our public folder, so image slash, what's it called? Where's the image? Bang sound effect .svg. We need an alt text equals, we'll just call it brand image. Now, if I save this and reload the page, it will not work. You'll see that it's just gone. The reason for that is because this is an SVG. If it were just a regular JPEG or something, it would work fine. But because this is an SVG, a scalable vector graphic, we have to provide a couple more parameters. We have to give it a height and a width. Because SVGs are not true images. They're basically just math formulas that draw an image. which is why SVGs can be scaled up and down without losing resolution, because it's basically just math that draws the image, and math doesn't change whether you make it bigger or smaller. So we're going to set the height to 40 and the width to 50, we'll call, and see what that looks like. Refresh. There we go. I like it. That looks good. And next we need this A tag to take us somewhere. We want this to take us to /comics, because that's going to be kind of our home page. Next, we have the home link. We're going to skip this button because we don't have to do anything with it. This is just the code that makes this button right here whenever it gets small enough. So this is a div is the next thing, and the div is kind of like the div that goes over all of that mess, that goes around everything, all of this stuff. We just need to leave that alone, basically. It has the collapse and Navbar collapse and all these different classes that you will need to look into the Bootstrap docs to really see what they do. But for our purposes, this is perfectly fine. The unordered list is just like we had in our other one, and the list items are the things on that list. So home, we don't want home, we want this to go to comics. So for comics, we want it to say comics. And you'll see here the span SR only is for screen reader only. This is making it a little bit more accessible. That's telling you this is where you currently are located. I don't want that right now because we don't want that in the header. We were going to add that later with JavaScript if we choose to. So comics, let's refresh and see if that worked. Sure did. We want that link to take us to /comics. And I'm not going to use this link right here or the disabled, so I'm just going to take this LI right here and copy and paste it over this stuff. So we're going to need 3 of those. Oops, so that, go down, fix our indentation. So now we've got 3 links and a drop down. So if I save and refresh, we've got comics, 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 drop down, and we've still got this disabled one that we don't want. So get rid of that. Save and refresh. There we go. We got 3 links and a drop down. We can leave the drop down here on the edge, and I think I will. I think that's fine. So we've got comics, and then we want, what do we want? We want login. Refresh, comics, login, and I guess we don't need this third one now that I think about it because our search is going to be over on the side. So comics, login, drop down. I think it's probably a better user experience if drop down comes before login because it's comics and our drop down. So let's move this login after our drop down. You can see this LI is the drop down. So we're going to paste that in there. Fix the indentation. Refresh. There we go. Comics, drop down, login. Now currently our login is still doesn't have the things on it, and our login right here still has active, still showing that it's active. We don't want that class. What that active class does is make it darker, but if we take it away, it's lighter and it has a little hover effect. So only have active on the page that is actually active. Can't talk. So now we have our drop down. We have an LI, inside of there is an A tag and a div that has a bunch of different lists inside that div, a bunch of different items inside that div. So this A right here says drop down, which is what the name of it's going to be. So we want this to be genres. Save and refresh. There we go. And inside of there we've got this drop down menu div, and each of these A tags, you have action, another action, then you see div class drop down divider, which is just what you think it is. It's this little line right here. We're not going to want that. So now we've got drop down item, drop down item, drop down item, refresh, and they're all 3 the same. So I'm going to do several of these things. So let's do superhero. Another popular genre is manga. It'd help if I could spell. We could do humor. And I'm just going to copy all of this, put it down here. Slice of life. sci-fi, you've got fantasy, there's horror, action, and nonfiction. And there are more, but we're just going to stick with these. Refresh our page. Now if I click on genres, I've got all these different things, and each one of these is a link. That's the cool part. Because now we can add whatever we want to this link. Right now they don't go to anything, but later on, when we have our database set up and we have like a genre attached to our data, we can tell our route that, hey, whenever a user clicks on this, only show the superhero comics, only show the manga comics, whatever. And that way they can quickly and easily jump through the data, only showing the ones they want. And that's really all there is to it with a Bootstrap navbar. I've got this. If I click on it, it takes me to comics. If I click here, it takes me to comics. If I go to the landing page, it's not there because we're not importing anything to the landing page. But if I go to the new, that's another link I'll add. I'll add the new link. So comics, genres, login. Let's find, let's see, let's just copy this one. So before login probably I think would be the best user experience. This is new, or add comic, /comics/new. So now if I refresh, I've got this add comic, and I don't want that to be active by default. So if I click on add comic, it takes me to this page. If I click on comics, it takes me to this page. I can just go back and forth however much I want to. I can still add new comics without a problem. Now this image obviously isn't going to work, but it's still there. And this whole thing is still responsive. And once it hits that breakpoint, it changes it, and you'll see that we didn't have to code this separately. We didn't have to come up with all this stuff, because if we were to do this manually, it would be a giant pain in the butt to do that responsive part. To make it, oh, you hit a certain breakpoint, like if you're on mobile, now you have your menu kind of collapsed in here. This would be insanely annoying and difficult to do, which is yet another reason Bootstrap is amazing. The last thing we really have to do is to clean up our actual comics page a little bit, because something screwy is going on here, and that's just one of the side effects of Bootstrap. So inside of our comics.ejs, get those to go away. The only issue is that we have to move our h1 inside of our container. Now this term, the class container, I chose very specifically because Bootstrap expects there to be kind of an outer container div with the class of container. And that is what makes it kind of offset, puts the margins on either side kind of thing. So as I refresh, now this is in here. It's a little jacked up now, obviously. And the reason that it's jacked up like that is because I am also in my CSS using .container. See right here? And that is overriding the Bootstrap. So we don't want that. So we'll change this to comics container. And again, I did this on purpose because I wanted to show you that your CSS class names matter, especially when you're dealing with third-party libraries. So we're going to change that to comics container, and that will start to fix the issue, but now our flexbox is broken. So now we need to add our flexbox into the comics.ejs. So instead of doing it on kind of the parent, we're going to create another div right here, class equals comics container. And that's just for each of the individual comic cards. So refresh, there we go, just like we wanted. Comics page is like it's supposed to be. These are set like they're supposed to be. Perfect. In this video, we added Bootstrap to our application, to the front end of our application. All Bootstrap is a CSS and JavaScript framework that allows us to easily do awesome stuff, like adding navbars, adding different components, using classes in CSS. That's really all it does. It's class-based. So by adding different classes, you can add different functionality and different looks to your website. We added this navbar by just simply copying and pasting their example. There's a lot more customization you can do. We're not really going to get into that because honestly, we just don't have time. That's come up several times throughout this course. There's just so much to full stack development that a lot of times we're having to kind of brush over concepts and just say, hey, Here's the basics. Look into it more as needed. And this is one of those things. Here's the basics. Look into it more as needed. We're going to use Bootstrap a little bit more. We're going to style our form with it, and we're also going to refactor this to the comics page to use Bootstrap instead of Flexbox to make these look better and make this go to the left and all kinds of stuff. But that's really all we're going to do with Bootstrap. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more that you could use it for. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to help. Thanks.